and welcome to Frost Over the World. Later in the programme, the US elections with one of the stars of the West Wing, cartoonist Gerald Scarfe, and movie director Ron Howard, who's directed a new film called Frost Nixon. But first, Zimbabwe, which has once again been thrown into chaos by the failure of Robert Mugabe and Morgan Tsvangirai to agree on the details of a power-sharing government. Thabo Mbeki has this week tried again, yet again, to thrash out a deal, but has yet, as of this moment in time, as far as we know, not achieved it. The impasse continues. But this power sharing is not only a two-way split, there's a third party at the table, the breakaway MDC faction, led by Arthur Mutambara, and he joins us now from Harare. Mr. Mutambara, thank you so much for joining us. What's the latest situation? Is there a healing deal that's been finalized, or what?
We are now in the fourth day of our discussions around setting up a cabinet, and we are hoping that today we have some progress. We are saying that a common vision for our country, a common vision for our people must be able to force us as leaders to come to some consensus and closure. We are saying some degree of flexibility and pragmatism should be able to guide us towards an answer. Our people are suffering, our people are angry, they're feeling very frustrated. We share those emotions of our people, and as leaders, we're trying our best to resolve this matter today.
And today, and in terms of, obviously, one of the problems, biggest problem perhaps at the moment, is that Mr. Mugabe seems to have arrogated to himself the police, army, security agents, foreign affairs, mining and land, which seems to be at the centre of running Zimbabwe. That can't stand. He can't have all those 6 posts, can he?
First and foremost, I'm not at liberty to discuss the details of our negotiations. We must protect the integrity of the process of dialogue, and hence I can speak around the issues and matters of the dialogue without going into details. Number one, what is important is for Zimbabwe and the world to understand that we're trying to set up one government, just one government, not 2, not 3, but one government. There will be no such thing as an MDC minister, neither will there be a ZANU-PF minister. The only type of minister we have in this country, in this inclusive government, is going to be a minister for the people of Zimbabwe. Hence, we are saying the political leaders, myself included, must put national interest before partisan interest. They must think about the people of Zimbabwe, compromise, be flexible, and establish this government. And we're saying to the international world, grow up. Please help Zimbabweans help themselves. Don't encourage Zimbabweans to bicker over ministerial positions. Encourage Zimbabweans to address 3 areas: the social, political, and economic matters of our country. Socially, we have a humanitarian crisis in our country, starvation and poverty in our country. We have the need for national healing in our country. Secondly, politically, we need a new constitution, a new people-driven democratic constitution in our country. We need democratic plural politics in our country. Economically, we need an economic recovery plan, we need economic stabilization, and more importantly, economic transformation of Zimbabwe into a prosperous and democratic country. Those are the issues, those are the matters, and we are saying Zimbabweans must be concentrating on those matters. The international community must be encouraging Zimbabweans to deal with the agenda of governance and not petty differences and bickering over positions in cabinet. There will be only one government with one cabinet decision-making system, collective responsibility, and hence we are saying the last 4 days have been wasted.
As you're negotiating, do the 3 leaders, you and Mr. Tsvangirai and Mr. Mugabe, do you all trust each other after everything that's happened, or is that a problem?
We are coming from a background of differences. We are coming from a background of conflict and fights. But we're saying that if we put Zimbabwe before self-interest, if we put Zimbabwe before partisan interest, we should be able to work together very effectively. Why? Because history has proven that it can be done. In 1980, Mr. Mugabe and the former Rhodesian leaders were able to form a government and move forward. In South Africa, de Klerk and Mandela were able to do it. If they could do it, why can't Mugabe and Tsvangirai do the same in the year 2008? So we are saying, in spite of those differences, in spite of that history of distrust, it is possible for Zimbabweans to move on to the next chapter and redeem our country from poverty to prosperity.
And are the, at this moment in time, Mr. Mutambara, would you say that you are, because you were linked and have been linked with the MDC, that you are still on their side, as it were, or are you, have you become a sort of mediator in the middle? A mediator for Mugabe as well as Mr. Tsvangirai?
I stand here today speaking on behalf of the people of Zimbabwe. I stand here today speaking on behalf of the starving Zimbabweans, the suffering Zimbabweans, the angry Zimbabweans who want to see progress in our country. So I'm rising above petty partisan distinctions to say, what can we do for our country? Consequently, in these negotiations, without giving details, I'm trying as much as I can to make sure the three leaders come towards a resolution. I'm trying to make sure that we as leaders are able to think about the national interest first, compromise and be flexible, have a common vision, and serve the people of Zimbabwe. Yes, I'm coming from the opposition. Yes, I'm together with Tsvangirai in the opposition, but I'm not beholden to Tsvangirai. I'm not beholden to Mugabe. I have a political party of my own. But at this juncture, I am saying, I am speaking on behalf of the starving Zimbabweans. I'm speaking on behalf of the suffering Zimbabweans. And I hope I'll be able to use my influence positively on Mugabe and Tsvangirai so that Zimbabweans can move from poverty, starvation, and misery to the promised land.
To the promised land, right. And is there a possibility, we've read in the papers here, Mr. Mutambara, about the possibility that Mr. Tsvangirai might walk out of the cabinet, walk out of these negotiations? Is there any danger of Mr. Tsvangirai or Mr. Mugabe walking out?
Failure is not an option for anyone in this country. No one can walk away. Mugabe cannot form a government on his own. There is no unilateral action permissible in our country. If Mugabe declares a government on his own, we're going to condemn that government. If Tsvangirai walks away, we're going to condemn that behavior. We have no luxury of people walking away or forming governments on their own. We have to have a threesome, a trilateral, a tripartite understanding. The three leaders, the three political parties must work together in government. They must agree. Defeat is not on the agenda, and there is no scope for any unilateral action by anybody.
Do you think that there will be fresh elections, there will need to be fresh elections in the relatively near future or not?
The agenda of this government is to come up with a new democratic constitution, create conditions for free and fair elections, and after that time have a referendum in which that constitution is adopted, after which we've gone through national healing, we've cured ourselves of the humanitarian crisis, we've recovered our economy, and then yes, we are going to have free and fair elections so that we can set up a proper government. What we have right now is a compromise arrangement. What we have right now is an inclusive government, which is a bloated government. This is the price we pay for peace. But in the long run, we have to have free and fair elections and set up a proper democratic government.
And will you be still, we've read that you were going to be Deputy Prime Minister. Is that still your plan?
Well, it's not my plan. It's a plan for the agreement. It's a plan for the country. If this agreement works, what you have described will happen. But that's not what is important. What is important is to address the social, political, and economic agenda that I've outlined to you. so that our people can move from misery, they can move and become full citizens with democratic rights, and they can choose a government of their choice. And then we can then transform our economy into a globally competitive economy in terms of GDP, per capita income, business growth, financial literacy. We have the potential. If we look at our human capital, natural resources, infrastructure, Zimbabwe can become the Switzerland, the Singapore of Africa. We desire to become a globally competitive economy, and we are going to achieve this with or without the assistance of the West.
Mr. Mutambara, thank you. Thank you so much for those fascinating and inspiring words, and we really thank you for joining us, and we hope that agreement will break out today or tomorrow, and we wish you well. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much for this opportunity to share with your viewers.
Our thanks to Arthur Mutambara there, joining us from Harare. After the break, an unusual view of the US elections from one of the stars of the West Wing. So he should know what he's talking about in a moment.